What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is The Mental Breakdown. I'm your host, Joey Velez. Today, I'm joined by former student athlete at Stanford University, Rollins Stallworth III. So, back at Stanford, he played football at a high level, and of course, at the high academic standard there at Stanford. And then, shortly after that, had a little stint playing professionally as well. But then, really transitioned out of athletics and more into the venture capitalist world. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about what was it like being a student athlete, especially at a prestigious university such as Stanford. But then was it also like transitioning out of the athletic environment and now into more of the business world. So take a listen. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, all those great things. Yeah, take a listen. Hope you enjoy, and then we'll see you at the end.
Joey, there he
Hey,
is.
my man, what's going on?
How we doing? How we doing?
Oh, that is a sweet setup you got there.
Oh, it's not bad, man. Not bad. We moved into the to this new office in San Francisco probably about 5 or 6 months ago at this point. Which is nice. Over in Jackson Square, a bunch of kind of old brick and timber
Oh, heck
kind
yeah.
of aesthetic. So it's not bad, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, dude. Just I'm getting gearing up towards 12 days of like vacation slash TDY starting tomorrow.
Okay, all
Um
right, that'll do it.
yeah, going down to Austin, checking out Formula One for the first time. And then we have our annual conference for sports psychology in Vegas shortly after that. So gonna go see what the new word is in the field of sports psychology, you know?
There it is. I love that.
Heck
And
yeah.
isn't it? It's Georgia versus Texas this weekend as well, I think.
Yeah, I totally just realized that. I was confused as to like why there weren't very many hotels available down there. I was like, Formula One can't be that big, right? And then today I was like, oh,
Yeah, it's a big
that's what's going
matchup.
on. So that'll be a good time. How long have you guys been in this new building? You said 5, 6 months. Where were you at before that?
Yeah, so I mean, we were right around the corner, same area, kind of an older building though. So yeah, we've been in San Francisco since the jump. But we live down in Mountain View.
Okay.
So I commute up to the office about 3 or so days a week. It's not too bad.
Okay. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I definitely want to get into what you're doing now for sure because I think being a student athlete, just being an athlete in general, I think what a lot of people don't understand is like the transition after sport, especially since you spend so much time and energy to this one field, like what happens afterwards, right? Um, Definitely gonna talk about that, and then I know you got a whole lot more going on, for sure. But before we start anything, and I think I even read something about this briefly on your LinkedIn profile. But what's something you're grateful for right now in your life?
Yeah, no, I love it, love it. I think I love the question because I think I try to attack every day with an attitude of gratitude, right? I think that's part of what I articulate to folks as my superpower, or one of my superpowers at least. And for me, it's always been around, gratitude, mostly around my community, around my parents, my family, my wife, my coaches, my mentors, my teachers, folks that have effectively, supported me and used their blessings to be a blessing for me, which then goes and motivates me to do the same thing, right? My thesis as
Yeah,
a human is like, how do I use my blessings to be a blessing to other, to be a blessing to others?
yeah. And I think I this was brought up at your wedding, but I remember that being a thing was just like the different types of people you had there supporting you both, and I think that kind of shows the impact, like not just that you've had on other people, but like you're saying, that have had the impact on you as well, and I think,
Oh,
yeah, I think you're talking about it too, just being able to kind of like give back, seeing what people did for you will now let me do that for the next round of individuals.
oh, 100%. And I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I like how I think about it a little bit is like, I don't know if you ever read the book Five Love Languages.
No,
Um,
not yet.
okay. I mean, it's a good one, and it's impactful in a lot of ways for relationships and so on and so forth. But actually, my favorite part of the book is in kind of some of the initial chapters before it even gets into the languages. it's the author talks about this notion of like everyone having a love tank,
Hmm.
right? And for someone to be able to reach their full potential or kind of self-actualization or so on and so forth, they need to have love in their love tank, similar to how like a car needs oil to run. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Yep.
for me, I've been fortunate that those folks that I've kind of listed in all the different aspects of my life have poured so much love into my love tank that I have never felt what it feels like not to have love in my love tank. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like overflowing. So I'm like, hey, I have like this innate responsibility to give that overflowing love that I have and been bestowed upon to give that to others.
Yeah, no, and I like that. And I think even you're talking about community too. That's a lot, teach a lot about resilience, right? It's like I think there's a belief that like to be resilient, you have to do things on your own, which is like, no, that's not the case. Like you need other people, right? So I think just having that community around you, what it can lead you to not only be more resilient, but like you said, kind of reach new heights, right? Because like you need other people to fill that gas tank. The car's not going to drive itself.
Exactly.
Heck
Exactly.
yeah.
100%.
Heck yeah. Well, like, yeah, so appreciate you jumping on. I know we've been at this for seems like a month or two. But we finally got some time, so I'm excited. Um, so, I obviously want to start off with the athletic part of your career, right? And I know you did so much more there than just play football. But I want to start with the athletic side because obviously, like, I'm in the field of sports psychology, right? So that's something that interests me. But Stanford University. Uh, High level D1 school, but also a lot of academic standards as well. So what was that experience like being a student athlete at Stanford University?
Yeah, no, it was a blessed experience. I mean, I think what's important to understand in terms of my experience there is I actually went to Stanford initially on a partial track scholarship
Oh,
and
okay.
then ended up walking on the football team as well. So my first couple of years I was a two-sport athlete and then ended up making the transition solely focusing on football, earning a full ride later in my career, and was lucky enough to be a part of some phenomenal teams. Went to uh, three Rose Bowls, a Fiesta Bowl. We had one kind of down year. We went to the Foster Farms Bowl. We called that the Chicken Bowl. But like played with phenomenal teammates. The Christian McCaffreys of the world, Andrew
Yeah.
Luck's, Bobby Okereke's, Brennan Scarlett, but like the list goes on in terms of guys that went on and are currently, still having great careers in the NFL, as well as guys that I played with that are having phenomenal careers outside of sport and what they're doing and making an impact and in their communities in a bunch of different ways, shapes, or forms. So I think for me, the relationships,
Mm.
the brotherhood, the life lessons that I learned throughout, and just the unforgettable moments and memories that sports and football and track for the couple years that I did that as well at Stanford really kind of just sticks out to me in terms of highlights of my career.
Heck yeah. And yeah, you made name dropped a couple people right there, but like yeah, when you were there, you were with a very talented group for sure. Obviously not just the two big ones you named, but like you guys were humming there for a good minute, right? There was a lot of people on that team, so I'm sure like yeah, just being around that environment, like I don't know how much it impacted your ethic, but like seeing those guys work, I'm sure had some impact on you to like work even harder, right? So it's like,
Oh, oh, 100%. I mean, I think, not it's like work ethic, but this mentality of kind of self-discipline and accountability,
mm,
right? I think was one of our hallmarks as a program and our culture as a team that allowed us to have so much success and in consistent success over time and during those 5 years or so. And I think and you'll appreciate this. A large part of that was due to our sports performance director, Coach Shannon Turley,
okay.
Coach Turles, who you might be familiar with. But I mean, he did a phenomenal job in essentially ingraining us with this level of discipline around our goals, around what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we attacked every day, our mindset heading into how we reacted and responded to adversity, all the things that I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but
Yeah.
that for me going into the program, it was very, I was, it was, there's all of that was very nascent to me in in terms of how that impacted performance and how that impacted success. But when I saw Andrew Luck was a senior when I was a freshman, right? And I saw Andrew Luck, who was arguably the best college football player in the country at the time and one of the best college football players ever, see his level of buy-in to that system, that culture, and that mindset. There's no other choice for me to go and stand in line and dive
Yeah.
in as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can go into, multitude of stories around his leadership and other kind of examples of how that kind of played out and impacted me then and continues to impact me now.
Yeah, so because I gotta imagine, obviously with sports, like there's a huge mental component to it. But I think that elevates when you're at a, Pac-12 school and you all are performing at a high level. So what was what was your mindset like with sport before you got there? And then because you said it, like just seeing all that and learning what you learned, it kind of your mindset kind of elevated a little bit. It's like what was it like beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, I think beforehand, I always knew like you had to work hard to get what you
Yeah.
wanted to get, right? You had to outwork your component. You had to put in the time and effort and the practice and whatnot. Like all of those kind of basic fundamentals were
Yeah.
there. But to me, when I went to Stanford and started learning more, it was a lot more about working smarter, not
Mm.
necessarily harder, right?
Yeah.
I think that is like chess instead of checkers in terms of like, hey, if you're practicing or working hard with no clear goal in mind, with no clear structure, with no clear accountability or measurement in terms of what you're doing and how you're doing it, who knows where you're going to go and how you're going to go, or how long it's going to get there, or what's it all
Yeah.
for, right? And so, kind of that elevated thinking around working smarter, not harder, I think one was the biggest piece of kind of evolutions in my mindset as I attacked the game of football and I would argue in the game of life as well, and as a,
Yeah.
as a student athlete as a whole.
Yeah, and I think goals provide you that direction, right? More deliberate intent behind what you're doing. I talk about this with basketball players all the time. Like I can go to the gym and shoot 1,000 3-pointers. Like I can do that any day of the week, but it's like, is that going to be more effective than me taking like, I don't know, 300 game shots? Sometimes you need the quantity, right? But I think, like you said, if I focus on working smarter, like having more quality practice, quality workouts, that's probably going to do better for me in the long run for sure.
Oh, 100%. Or like what was interesting, right? We had some of the top teams in the country every year. And if you were to just to compare our our max lifts of our players, right? How much we could bench, how much we could squat, all these different things. Like we never had any guys that were out there squatting 900 pounds, right? Like
Yeah,
because we weren't optimizing for that. We're not bodybuilders, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we're football players, right? So like we were training with very specific and intentional ways and metrics and goals in mind around our functional movements and what we're doing in the actual role and position that we play on a given
yeah.
game, so it went that like elevated kind of working smarter, not harder, I think was to your point, huge for us.
Yeah, and I think strength is obviously important in the game of football for sure, right? But like, do I need to go out there and squat 900 pounds? I don't know, probably not, right? Like, I think we could use that time elsewhere. But I mean, shout out to the people who can do that because that's hard as hell. Like, I can't do that. Like,
Percent.
um, but so, and then you kind of talked about it earlier, but like you said, you learned a lot of lessons throughout that experience. Like, what do you think was, I don't know, like what's one lesson that sticks out from your time there at Stanford?
That's a great question. I think one, I mean, one of my favorite stories is my freshman year. And to me, it's a lesson around leadership and what leadership truly looks
Okay.
like. It was my freshman year. It's one of the wildest games I've ever been a part of. We were playing USC at USC,
I had a feeling you
and
were going to say USC because I don't know why that kind of came into my
I mean, it
mind.
was like it was at the Coliseum. They were like top 10 in the country. We were, I think they were like six. We were like 12, something like that. Huge matchup, sold out arena. There's like 112,000 fans.
Yeah.
Just electric environment. We had Andrew Luck. They had a bunch of star guys. It was a back and forth game, and it came down to the fourth quarter. We had the ball. and we were tied. And we just whatever, like 2 minutes left, clock's running, and Andrew Luck goes and throws an interception. He makes a horrible, like a bad decision, throws an interception. It's not just an interception, he throws a pick six,
Oh,
right?
dang.
And it's like it's 7 points the other way. Now there's a little over a minute left. We're down by seven. And I remember being on the sideline immediately in my feelings, like immediately, like, oh my God, like we just lost.
Yeah, you
Like
felt
that
that,
was
yeah.
it. Like we like our bet, like Andrew just blew it. Like we're done. You know what I mean? I went immediately like negative, it's over. Like that's how I responded to adversity. But when I was kind of with my head down, I kind of looked up and I saw Andrew come off the field. And he was mad and frustrated and whatnot, but then you saw a switch flip and he started pumping people up. He started hitting people on the chest and say, "Hey, we're getting the ball back. We're good." Boom, 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 boom. Like, and at the time, I was like, "Yo, Andrew's lost his mind." You know what I mean? Like he just lost the game, and I was
Yeah.
acting like he just threw a touchdown. Like he's lost it.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, we get the ball back. He orchestrates a beautiful drive down the field. We score with, whatever, a handful of seconds left, force it to go into overtime, and end up winning in dramatic fashion in triple overtime. And silence the 112,000 people that were in. Like it was like an unbelievable victory, like unforgettable moment. And when I replay it back in my head, there's no way we would have won that game if Andrew didn't have that leadership and that response to adversity in the moment that then trickled down to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, that's like one of the and so I took that with me for the rest of my career in terms of how I can lead by example, how I can respond to adversity, and how that impacts the rest of the team around me.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of research related. It's more related to like coaching, but it's definitely like the leadership category is like if you what the response you want from your team, you need to display those things, right? If I'm a coach telling you to calm down, but like I'm screaming at you, not gonna work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, he was frustrated, but like he was going with the energy of like, no, like we still got this, it's fine. So
Mhm.
then you were like, oh, all right, yeah, sick, maybe we do. All right, cool. So let's see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you telling that story like towards the end, like I started to get the chills because I feel like I started to put myself in that situation. I gotta imagine, yeah, being on that field, clock finally hits zero, and you guys win, like just what that felt like in that moment, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah,
No, it's incredible.
yeah, yeah. Now I know you did a lot more at Stanford than just, be a student athlete. I know you were part of like the student athlete leadership team, the advisory committee. What was that experience like? What was your role within those two things?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate you calling that out. I think it's part of, you know, what made Stanford experience so phenomenal for me was to be able to excel at a high level on the sports front and play at the highest stages and so on and so forth, but also on the academic side, have phenomenal opportunities to not only learn from, some of the smartest people in the world and have classmates that were, aspiring to do a bunch of amazing things, but also have opportunities, extracurricular opportunities to kind of scratch some leadership itches of my own. And so a couple of them were, like, as you mentioned, was the head of the student athlete leadership team for the Pac-12, where I represented not only Stanford, but the Pac-12, and then eventually student athletes nationwide
Oh
in
wow.
Washington, D.C., at the Night Collegiate Athletics Forum, where I was actually, and this was back in 2015 or so, 2014, 2015, and I was fighting for student athletes' name, image, and likeness
I,
rights back
I think
then.
you had a video up and I think I watched that and I was like, oh
Yes.
man, this has been going on for a minute. Okay.
No, no, almost 10 years ago, I was
Yeah.
fighting the good fight for student athletes nationwide for us. And at the time, the fight I was fighting for us was centered around us having our name, image, and likeness rights around things outside of sport. Like if I wanted to go and open up my own whatever t-shirt shop, I should be able to do that
Yeah.
without NCAA stranglehold on my name, image, and likeness. And so
Yeah.
that was a phenomenal opportunity to be a part of. And just, like I said, meet a bunch of great people, exercise some leadership skills and experiences. And another one to note is I was actually also fortunate enough to be one of 10 students selected to be a part of a experience that led to me meeting President Obama,
Oh, wow.
which was absolutely incredible because we were told that we had been kind of nominated and selected to represent the university at the cybersecurity summit that was held at Stanford's campus, and it was like the first time it was held outside of the White House in a handful of years, and it was a big deal. It brought together a bunch of top politicians as well as some top kind of CEOs and founders on the private side
Mhm.
of the house as well. And we got to go and be a part of the summit and kind of sit VIP or whatnot, which was great. And that's all we kind of thought we were going to be able to be exposed to. And then lo and behold, after the event, we kind of get brought into this back room. And there's this like horseshoe table, and I'll have our name tags and we go sit down, and it's like us, 10 students, and like a handful of kind of President Obama's kind of right-hand folks. And we start talking, discussing, introducing ourselves, and 5, 10 minutes in, like the double doors open, and here comes President Obama, right?
Oh
And
my
we're like,
God.
and we don't know what to do. We kind of like stand up, like we don't like our mouths are all open and
Yeah, well,
drop.
yeah,
It's
what
just
do you
like,
do?
what do you do? And so, he comes and like shakes all of our hands and sits at the head of the table and kind of takes a seat, and he's just like he immediately calmed us all down and said, "Hey guys, like sit down, like we're good." Just to set the stage, I just wanted to bring you guys here, no agenda. But for the next whatever, 30, 45 minutes, I'm an open book. There will be no press. There's nothing like this is like I'm an open book. Whatever you guys, whatever on your mind, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you're concerned about, let's discuss it. I want to hear what you guys are hearing and what you guys are feeling, what you guys want to talk about. So boom, from that point on, it was like being in a hour long like discussion section with President Obama being your teacher. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
Like
Yeah,
it
prison
was
mom as a
unbelievable.
mediator. That's
It
wild.
was unbelievable. And I'll never forget. After that, I'm walking out of that room, like kind of shocked around what just happened. I get stopped by a White House staffer who stopped me, and she's like, "Young man, I have to let you know, I've been working at the White House for over 30 years. And I've never had 1 second alone with any president of the United States." She's like, you just had an hour alone with the
Yeah.
president of the United States. You know what I mean? It's like, and so it's just an unbelievable experience. But once again, those are the type of experiences that I'm extremely grateful for and
Yeah.
try to learn from and kind of, once again, feel that attitude of gratitude around my time at Stanford.
Yeah, and man, that's yeah. What do you do in that situation? Like, in comes the president. You're like, oh, what do I say words? What do I do now?
Oh,
What was
100%.
what was is there? Did you get to ask him a question? Like, what was one takeaway you had from that conversation with him?
Yeah, man,
Like,
it was a fascinating conversation because we talked about the range of what we talked about was so wide. So we talked about, there's points where folks were getting emotional and teary-eyed when he was
oh,
talking
sure.
about decisions he had to make around, stuff that was going on in Syria at the time and so on and so forth. And so we really got very vulnerable in that sense. And then on the flip side, we were like talking and joking around about college football and like running the 40 and like you know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
so like in that span of that hour, there was tears, there was laughs, there was just, insight and real discussion that was happening. And so, it was kind of a little bit of a blur because it's still like the whole time you're like, well, I can't believe this is happening.
yeah.
But what I learned though and took away from him was like his ability to and I think this is like another form of leadership, right? If we want to keep that kind of same thread of like connecting with everyone and making
Hmm.
everyone feel comfortable and it made everyone feel that we're on the same level as him,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that, I think was a very unique quality, and made us all feel at ease and have that like ability to be vulnerable and curious and so on and so forth.
I was gonna say, yeah, it probably makes you guys more comfortable in that situation and a lot easier to be vulnerable in front of this, huge figure, right?
Yes, yes,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, and I think, yeah, with leadership, right, it's like, yeah, sure, there are boundaries of like, hey, like, I'm your boss, not your friend, sort of thing, right? But I think at the same time, too, if you make it known that like you're above them, that's not gonna lead to a high functioning team, right? Like being able to open door policy, open lines of communication, right? Like, hey, I'm in the thick with you, or like, yes, my title's different, but like, no, we're in this together. Let's kind of figure it out. I think, like you experience, it's gonna make the vibe around everybody else a little bit more opening and welcoming for sure.
Oh, 100%. Like that ability to create that safe space in the
Yeah.
moment, I think is an art in itself.
Heck yeah. Now, after Stanford, I know you went CFL for a little bit. You experienced there, and then you obviously made this transition out of sport. I think first question is like, what was that decision like to now move on from the athletic part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It was a tough decision. Um, because I'll give you I'll give you the short. I've told too many stories
Oh,
already, but
no,
I'll give
I
you
appreciate it, man. It's good stuff.
no. I mean, so the short story of the CFL because I was a short up there for a very short amount of time, but it's important context to have in terms of how I thought about my transition afterwards. Was like I went up there a little bit on a whim because I didn't get much love from the NFL. I ended up playing a different position up there. I started playing both ways, but made the team actually as a cornerback, as a
Okay.
DB, even though I played wide receiver at Stanford. And I went up there and I was playing well. And part of the reason why I was playing so well, and you'll appreciate this from a sports psychologist standpoint, or sports psychology standpoint, is I was I was playing to win. I was playing to have fun, right? Like
Yeah.
I had flipped a switch from when I was trying to make the NFL and whatnot, where there was so much pressure and there was so much anxiety and whatnot, where I was like, hey, like I'm up in Canada playing a different position in a different country. Like why am I doing it? I do it because I enjoy the game of football. I
Yeah.
enjoy competing. I enjoy, having fun and I enjoy winning. And like, okay, how do I win? I win because yeah, how can I win? I win because I'm not going to out technique somebody because I don't play this position.
Yeah.
I'm not faster than these folks, but I'm bigger, I'm longer, I'm probably smarter in certain areas, right? So let me use that to my advantage. And so, long story short, it gave me this kind of like laissez-faire attitude that like allowed me just to play free and I was
Yeah.
balling, right? And I was balling, right? And so like I kid you not, I'm playing well. I'm like I end up earning the starting will linebacker job,
Okay.
which is crazy. Like as a receiver, we're like playing will
Receiver
linebacker,
to
like
DB to will linebacker. Okay,
yeah, no, it's
that's an
wild.
easy.
It's wild. But what happened was we go into our first couple games of the season and that attitude, that mentality started to flip back. It started to flip back to playing not to lose,
Mm,
playing not to make a mistake. Oh,
yeah.
I made it all this way. I earned a starting job. Like I'm right here. Like don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Right. And that pressure and that anxiety and that kind of worry that I had within myself and impacted my gameplay had one of the worst games, not only of my like football career, but like of my athletic career as a whole
Yeah.
1 week and boom. And how it works up there, similar to NFL, but even more so in the CFL. It's cutthroat, revolving door. Like the next morning, didn't matter what I had done the months prior from in terms of the performance that I had. That one horrible performance led me to get cut
Oh wow.
the next morning, right? And I'll never forget. I'm getting driven to the airport, and the guy who's his job to kind of whatever deliver folks that have been
To
cut to the
usher you
airport.
out, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, so Stallworth, like, what's your plan? You're gonna be back here next year, going to a different team, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, I don't know. Like I just graduated with my master's degree from Stanford, boom, boom, boom. And he's like, he's like, what the hell are you doing up here? You got a degree? He's like, you got 2 degrees from Stanford? Like, why are you up here? Like, what year? And I'm like, hey man, I'm chasing the dream just like everybody else,
Yeah.
right? But I tell all that context in the sense that once I did get released, I came back down to the States and I was faced with that kind of decision point. And I compared the limbo that was chasing a professional career in football to the opportunities that I had and earned by working so hard academically and other categories of my life at Stanford, getting 2 degrees and so on and so forth. It was kind of a clear decision for me at that
Yeah.
point to make the jump that ultimately led me to kind of officially hang up the cleats to start the next step of my career.
Yeah, I think with that story, right, I think it's to start, it shows like just adaptability, right? It's like if I want to continue this dream, like it, I might have to adjust something, and you were given an opportunity to like, hey, why don't you go try to DB? It's like, all right, screw it, let's just go see what happens, you
Yeah.
know? But then too, I think a lot of times in that situation, we're gonna tend to focus on like our deficiencies or why I shouldn't be in this situation. But you were like, yeah, I might not have the technique because I never played this position before, but I have these things that I can focus on, which I
Mm.
think a lot of times is like we might be in unfamiliar situations. Well, how do I build confidence in a situation? Well, what are you focus on what you currently possess now,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's related or not, like you can make it kind of translate.
Mhm.
Um, but then I think, God, there was one more piece that I was going to touch on with that, but it kind of slipped my mind, I think.
Well, there's
But then I think
the
that,
mindset piece.
yeah, but I think, like you said about having fun, that's what it was. I
Mhm.
think nobody wants to go into a competition or any performance and lose. Like I think we inherently want to win at whatever we do. We want to do well, right? But there's so much out of your control within that. If I just focus on having fun, a lot of the times the result is gonna play out the way I kind of want it to, right? And at the very least, if I don't do well, it's like, you know what? I failed. It wasn't a great outcome, but like at least that was me. At least I did my thing. At least I had fun. Not
Yeah.
to say that like you should be happy losing, but like maybe it keeps you from getting too much into your head for the next time, you know?
100%.
Um, but then also I think too with like that's a big decision, right? Because you had been playing football for what? Probably close to like 15, 20 years at that point,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So I think again, making that decision to finally give that up, that's not an easy decision, right? And that's something you don't want to force either. Like kind of has to come organically.
No, 100%, 100%. And I think, for me, it wasn't like a immediate decision, right? I think
Yeah.
it did take some time, took some soul searching, took, once again, leaning on my community and support system and kind of mentors or folks or friends or former teammates that kind of went through a similar transition, right? To kind of eventually get to what I believed was not like, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but like the best decision for me at the time
Yeah.
to then go and take my excitement and my joy and my focus and whatnot and all the things that I learned and all the skills that I developed into the next journey ahead.
Yeah, so now, yeah, so it's a good segue because now like you're transitioned into life as like a venture capitalist. Yeah.
Well, no, my first step was actually in commercial real estate.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah, yeah.
then okay, so yeah, so different life, commercial real estate, and then what did you after how
So no, and then
what was
commercial
the
real estate
progression?
to venture.
Okay. What is so I know you just talked about it like using the skills you learned from, the athletic career into like now into the business, the working world, right? So like what skills like translated to what you do or how do they translate into what you do now?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So for me, I'll touch it in a couple points. Like I knew I'm very kind of analytical in terms of how I think and like build frameworks in terms of how I make decisions and how I kind of self-reflect, so on and so forth. And so what I did was when thinking about my career post athletics was like, okay, what about football or what about sports like allowed me to excel, allowed me to enjoy, allowed me to kind of get to where I got to. And, there's a few things that stood out, right? It was like one about being a part of a team, right? And being able to be a collaborative teammate, being a part of a culture to where I can continue to get better every day myself, but also be rest assured that everyone else is doing the same thing for the greater good of the common goal, right?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
that kind of team mindset is a culture that I thrived in, I think, and contribute to in a valuable ways, right? That was a core box that I knew fit my strength as well as I wanted to make sure was an ingredient around wherever recipe that I was trying to make next,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
that was one. Another one was like, okay, my ability to have the discipline and focus, and I call it kind of like maniacal discipline to go and attack a goal, and not only attack a goal, but have the kind of structure to bring it down into systematic detail or into stepping stones, and then go and attack that over time, right? And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
like that can be that skill and that approach can be applied to a bunch of different things, right? The second thing was my ability to handle adversity, right? To your point, adaptability,
Yep.
flexibility, right? I'm preaching to the choir here, but all these things I kind of broke down into kind of the bare bones of what allowed me to be successful in sport and what was going to allow me to be successful, but more importantly, was going to direct me to where I wanted to go and what team I wanted to be a part of and what
Hmm.
mentors I was going to look for, so on and so forth, right? Because a lot of people were candidly shocked a little bit that I chose to go to the commercial real estate firm that I went to because I had other opportunities within Google and some other kind of, larger name brands and opportunities. And I was, blessed to have a bunch of kind of different routes I could have went. But
Hmm.
what was unique about the firm T3 Advisors, it was called, was it had former athletes
Okay.
who helped start it, right? So they immediately understood the value chain and the skills and the understanding of cool kind of the internal flame that was inside of me,
Yeah.
right? They understood that and were aware of that. But also based on the structure of the team and how we were compensated, they were incentivized to pour gasoline on my flame, right? And so that was going to
Okay.
expedite my growth. That it kind of created this team collaborative mindset and way of collaborating and working together. And it was a small team, and so I was able to come in essentially at the ground floor and feel empowered to have a bunch of responsibility. Not necessarily know, I didn't know much about real, I could probably barely spell real estate at the time, right? But that level of empowerment and responsibility from day one gets me fired up, right? And I
Yeah.
and I and it kind of allows me to bet on me, right? Which I think is a lot of from my confidence that I gained from my athletic successes as well. So that's what led me to T3, and what I would say allowed me to thrive at T3. And then fast forward, couple years, I end up earning. Look, Zoom's getting all fired up.
Zoom's getting
Um,
fired up for the story right now, man.
couple years in, I earned the opportunity to go out to New York to open up our New York market. So I'll go out
Okay.
there and I build a team and I spread the gospel, and I'm lucky enough to have quite a bit of success. That success mapped the momentum we had as a firm, help lead to a an exit a few years back. We ended up getting bought by a publicly traded out a company traded out of London, which then opened up the doors for me to think about next steps and put me into
Yeah.
another kind of inflection point. And I don't want to be too long-winded, but then I went through a similar kind of transition process around like,
Yep.
okay, hey, what have I learned around myself and the data and my what are my likes, dislikes, my strengths, my weaknesses, so on and so forth from this chapter? How can I apply that to my next, and how can that inform me to where I want to go and how I can succeed?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm also hearing too is like not want to say constant, but like a consistent state of like reflection, right? Like
Yes.
before I make a decision, like let me reflect on like my experiences, like what do I want? What am I good at? Like what can help me? Like what do I want to work on? Right? Like I think that's important because I think sometimes too it's like either we get stuck in those transition phases and I just don't know what to do, or it's like I need to have a job now. I got to do
Mm.
something now. And like Yeah, maybe you do get a job quick, but maybe it's not something you truly enjoy. That's something that's not like sitting that doesn't mesh well with like your skills or what you actually want, right? And then who knows, maybe you're looking for another job down the road, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And what I tell folks is what has allowed me to make the transitions that I've had has kind of been twofold, right? I think one is, to your point, like that self-reflection and self-awareness around all the things, but in particularly my superpower or superpowers. And like I define a superpower by like whatever the crossroads of your passion and your strength,
Okay.
right? And like understanding that and like truly believing and being able to articulate that and experience that and to kind of highlight that in what you do, right? I think that understanding has boded extremely well for me in my journey, as well as once again, this is a common theme, leaning into my community to not only to like match the internal data that I'm collecting from myself with external data that I'm collecting from my community and mentors and parents, and like folks that
Yeah.
have been there and done that, right? And
Yeah.
so every one of these transitions, I leaned hard into my community to ask for their thoughts and opinions and whatnot, and like not to necessarily make the decision for me, but to add to that framework, add to that decision-making process, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, definitely a common theme of this conversation is support network community, right? And the importance of that. Also definitely going to clip that superpower for sure. Like find your superpower. I think that's a nice message. I like that. Um, so I don't want to say hardship, but like with community, right? Like with having a support network, like what do you think, like why is that important? Since it's been such a big theme here, like why is it important to have such a strong support system?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it at the forefront, right? Because no one can do it alone, right? No, like, I think life, I mean, whatever, whether it's life as a whole, whether it's a certain endeavor or goal or pursuit within your career, outside of your career, I think the power of community and mentorship can't be understated in
Yeah,
terms of the ability that someone can help you get to where you want to go and lend you advice and provide you love and support and understanding, so on and so forth. And so, like, to me, it's one of the most important things one could have. And that's why I often tell folks, and I speak with a lot of young athletes or student athletes. I speak with a lot, a lot of youth, and when they're thinking about what team to be a part of or what school to go to or what career path, etc. I'm like, hey, one of the biggest boxes you need to have checked is who you're going to surround yourself with on a day-to-day basis.
yeah,
What team, what coach, what mentors, like, because that is who's going to make the most impact on who you are and how you grow over time.
yeah. Yeah, and especially like if I'm an athlete trying to pick a school, like that's who you're gonna be around the majority of your time there, right? So it's
That's
like
it.
you wanna make sure they're gonna steer you in the right direction for sure. Tell you what you need to hear, not always what you like want to hear, right?
Oh, 100%,
Uh,
100%.
you kind of brought it up. Like you are a man of faith, correct?
I am.
How do you think that has impacted you on your journey? Because I'm sure that also plays into the role of like community as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate the question. I think for me, I've always used my faith. I always try to make sure that my attitude and my behaviors and actions mirror my faith or kind of showcase my faith, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I've kind of attacked my journey. And so my faith has allowed me to establish a certain set of values as a human, as a man, that lays the foundation for everything that I do, right? And it kind of gives me almost like a lighthouse
Hmm.
to kind of stay guided or stay centered, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's played an impact. And why? let me just put it this way. That impact that has played in terms of how I operate as a human, I think allows me to come off, and this is what folks have told me, so on and so forth, is like from a certain way that's authentic, right? That allows me to connect with folks, that allows folks to feel that I'm genuinely connecting with them, so on and so forth, which then allows me to, I think, inspire community in a better way or a more efficient way or a more authentic way than not. And then it could go a level deeper in terms of like, if there's a certain crossover of faith with whoever I'm talking to and talking about and whatnot, like that's a whole community within itself as well. But
Yeah.
even not, I think it fuels the way I interact with people that allows me to inspire community.
Yeah, I'm hearing it helps like guide your daily behaviors, right? Like what you do on a day in and day out basis. But then I think the other thing you said too was like kind of provides you a framework for
Hmm.
who to be, and I think for the people listening, whether that's faith, whether that's, understanding your purpose or your why, whatever that is, like just the importance of understanding like what your foundation is, right? Because I think that can help you in decision making. It can help you, you know, impact others. It can help you in a multitude of ways, right? But I think if you don't know, it's hard to do the things if you don't know who you are or what it is that you want or why you do what you do. It
Oh,
seems like that kind of
100%. I mean,
provides an opportunity for you.
it goes back to that level of self-reflection and self-awareness and
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like that understanding of like who you are, why you are, and like that will then go and illuminate essentially what you can do or what you want to do or how you want to go about it.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the main skills that I give to people is like reflection. And there's like, oh wait, you don't have like an actual like skill for me to build confidence or whatever it is. I'm like, I need you to know about yourself before we do anything. Because
Yes.
if you don't know what's going on, then whatever I give you might not have as an effect as you think it might, you know?
Oh,
But yeah,
100%.
yeah. One of the last things I want to ask you about, and I think I saw this, I don't remember if it might have been on your Instagram page, but one of the projects I saw you working on was Pulse.
Pulse.
It was about like racial inequality, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think there was a link in your Instagram and I clicked on it and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Was it my blog post?
It might have been, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I might have used Pulse as the medium into which I shared it.
Oh, that would make sense.
Uh, but yeah, talk to me, man.
So tell me about that. How'd that start? What are you working with that? What do we got?
Yeah. No, so for me, like I said, my thesis as a human is like use my blessings to be a blessing. And I've done that. I try to do that on my day-to-day basis in terms of how I operate, how I engage with folks, my career, kind of optimizing the opportunities that I have in front of me, right? So that's like one way I try to do that and like lead by example. The other way I try to do that is try to leverage my superpowers in the best way possible to impact my community in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
One is I work with a nonprofit called Build that uses entrepreneurship to ignite the potential of underestimated youth, primarily freshmen and sophomores in high school, right? To me, I look at that as kind of like the medicine for my community, right? Where I also work with like a nonprofit organization called Hustle 2.0 that works with currently and formerly incarcerated individuals to kind of get back on their feet or kind of transform their hustle, so on and so forth. I look at that as almost like this is the medicine. The kind of youth side is kind of the teaching of the healthy habits, so on and so forth, more proactive to my community. And then the in between, I look at to what you're pointing at is how I can effectively, in my own way, try to dismantle racism and kind of bias or racial systems in our country, in our community. And it's a tall order, it's a tall task. And, part of this was fueled by obviously George Floyd's murder back in the pandemic. And the story was when George Floyd and everything happened. I was actually at a funeral for one of my teammates the weekend after it happened. And I was staying in this big Airbnb with a handful of teammates, and all of us were African American, and we're kind of, I'll never forget, like we're all kind of dealing with not only the loss of our teammate, but also dealing with
Yeah.
with with the news of George Floyd and the social unrest and whatnot. And you can kind of see, I can kind of see all of us dealing with our own internal tornado inside of our heads, right? And so what I
Yeah.
did was I brought everyone, all whatever, it was like 10, 15 of us back in the backyard. And we all sat around this kind of big table, and we kind of just open it up to like just share our thoughts and our feelings, and be vulnerable around how everything was impacting us and what we thought about the future and potential solutions and whatnot. And like, it was an unbelievable experience because although we consider ourselves brothers, and we've gone to war with each other on the football
Yeah.
field and known each other for close to a decade and so on and so forth, we were learning things and hearing stories about one another that we had never shared before,
Yeah.
right? And although we were all young black men, and all young black men with Stanford degrees, and although we grew up in different parts of the country, we had a lot of the shared experiences in terms of dealing with racism, but we had varying views on what should be done moving forward and
Hmm.
what frameworks to use and what solutions,
Yeah.
et cetera. And so that was really a catalyst for me to be like, you know what? I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm going to articulate my answer
Yeah.
and my framework, and I'm going to share with the world, and I'm going to use that as, once again, a framework or a guideline moving forward that directs my efforts in terms of how I'm impacting my community.
Yeah, and I think, when I saw that and I read that, that between your LinkedIn profile, between what I know about you from Kayla, right, even from this conversation, right, I think another common theme outside of community is like your ability and willingness to try to advocate for other people,
Mm.
right? Whether it's with these two projects you just mentioned out, Hustle 2.0 and Build, this experience you're just talking about now. I mean, even back to Stanford being a part of like the leadership team and things like that. It's almost like that's all. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's another way if you like you said, give back. Like so much people have given to you. Well, let me try to help other people this way and see what I can do to kind of progress, not just these individuals, but like not just my community, but surrounding communities, society. What can I do to kind of make things better, you know? Um, and I think, yeah, big moments like that teaches you a lot about yourself, but also other people, right? Like you said, you had known these people for quite a long time and you had been through some hard times with them, but then you learn a little bit more when like, I don't want to say real life stuff happens, but like something like that happens, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh, 100%. And another example is unfortunately, I've over the years, I've lost, a handful of friends and family to suicide. And uh, that level of like real life adversity hits different, right? And impacts
Yeah.
you and impacts everyone around you and so on and so forth. And so that's also led to me, I'm the chair of a board of a nonprofit called lifeisworthit.org that goes and uses kind of this notion of total life wellness to spread mental health awareness and prevent youth suicide. And that, to your point, is like, okay, these things are happening, these things have happened to me. How can I, once again, back to leadership, back to these mindsets and how do you deal with adversity? Like, how can I channel that and go and use it as motivation and energy to make an positive impact on others?
Yeah. Hell yeah. No, I love that, man. So I think so the last thing I really want to ask you, and I think we've talked a lot about a lot of different things here, a lot of mindset related, a lot about community, a lot about leadership, a lot about, the importance of like understanding yourself and through reflection and things like that. For the people listening, you know, whether it's from today's conversation, what's a piece of advice you want them to walk away with, Yeah, whether it's in terms of this conversation or just in general, but like, what is a word of advice, words of wisdom you have for the people listening?
A loaded question, a loaded question.
Heck yeah,
I
that's what I do, man.
no, I respect it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've touched on a lot. I think
Yeah.
we've touched on a lot, right? Whether it's playing to win, not to lose, whether it's thinking about how you respond to adversity, right? And controlling what you can control, whether it's kind of using your blessings to be a blessing, whether it's like the importance to your point of self-awareness. I think, so hopefully there's some nuggets along the way if folks have tuned in. But if you're just tuning in now, or this is the last section that you're saying, something that I often remind myself on is this notion of progress over perfection, right? And it's like whatever it's within sport, whether it's within your career, whether it's within like nonprofit endeavors, like whatever you're trying to do, just the next step. Just get the next, you know what I mean? Like step by step, just go, just start, just do it. Don't like progress over perfection. It's never gonna be perfect. It's never like, but just go, just start it, just go. Trust it. It'll happen. Like lean forward, lean in, have confidence, have that self-awareness and reflection as you're going, but progress over perfection.
Yeah, and it almost sounds too like just trusting yourself, like trusting yourself that yeah, not trusting like oh it's gonna be perfect, but trusting yourself like hey it's gonna work out,
Yeah,
you know?
or to our discussion earlier, whether it's trusting yourself or trusting the Lord or trusting whoever, like whatever you kind of, use as a way for that fuel or that kind of internal spark, trusting that and having progress over perfection.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. I love that. I think it's a great message to end on. Focus on the progress, not the perfection. Where can the people find you? What would be the best way to check out Rollins and what he's up to?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is probably a good one. Email, I try to be open in terms of responding there as well. You can find that on my firm's website, Nava Ventures, nava.vc. And then Instagram as well. I'm on Instagram. That's one thing I'm trying to get better at is posting more and sharing a lot more about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Kayla's trying to help me out with that.
I
I need
mean, it
to
gets overwhelming, man. Like, you got LinkedIn, you got Instagram, you got Facebook, you got all these different sides. X, it's like, man, a lot of things to
No,
post.
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so there's a handful of ways and yeah, don't, feel free to reach out or I don't know if there's thoughts, questions, ways that we can collaborate, I'm always here.
Oh, for sure. And I'll definitely I'll find either I'm sure you got some links for me or something, but I'll put some links that are ways to get in touch with like the nonprofits you're a part of so they can kind of check those out too.
Oh, love that. Yeah,
But
appreciate
look, man,
that.
yeah, I appreciate you hopping on. This was amazing. I'd love to do it again in the future sometime. Who knows? Maybe I come down to California. We do a live one, you, me, and Kayla. We'll see what happens there. Who
There you
knows?
go. Love
But no, I
it.
appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you again for doing this. For those of you listening, thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening on the podcast. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe to all the different platforms. Yeah, leave comments below if you have any questions for Rollins or myself. But other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, today is a great day to make an impact. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your day.